Thank you all again for being here. Greatly appreciate all of us. And over the last decade, our country has gone through a public health and safety epidemic regarding a lack of gun control. How does your candidate plan to address this crisis and ensure that there is public safety at all schools and all public settings? Thank you.
Okay, so since the question seems to be addressed to all the speakers, how about we start with Ryan Healy, representing Tulsa Gap.
Thank you for your question. What we're seeing with the rise of gun violence is disheartening. I mean, it's disheartening, it's heartbreaking, it's unacceptable. When there is an issue where 90% of the public is behind, it makes no sense that our government and our federal, it's really just the Senate and the executive branch, they're not doing their jobs. It also shows how deeply seated the Republican Party is in the pockets of the NRA. In terms of how to deal with gun violence and the epidemic that we're facing, we have to recognize that no gun control policy or plan, will be able to solve all murders. We all recognize that, and we also have to recognize that we do have a built-in amendment, the Second Amendment, that does protect the rights of people to bear arms. However, there are some common sense reforms that I think all of us, speaking today would support, whether that's background checks or, stronger than that, a federal licensing program, whether that's, a voluntary assault weapons buyback. It certainly is banning assault weapons, whether it's investing more in mental health, whether it's banning bump stocks, and that's something the Trump administration has done, the one bright light. Those are some of the common sense reforms, that I think everyone here supports. Reducing gun violence is certainly a priority, and I know the next administration will need to put together a task force to get to the root of some of these issues, and in addition to passing some common sense reforms.
Thanks. Lauren Pothier, would you like to address that question?
Gun violence in our country is one of the most horrible things that we have faced in the past decade, probably. So it is something in the forefront of almost all of our candidates that we are speaking about. Elizabeth Warren plans within the first 100 days to make gun violence prevention legislation law. She wants to send legislation to Congress right away. She wants to break the NRA stronghold on Congress by passing a sweeping anti-corruption legislation. And she plans on eliminating the filibuster so that our nation can no longer be held hostage by a small group of people who want to hold our Senate or House of Representatives hostage. Elizabeth Warren, as a school teacher, knows how sacred our schools are. So she knows how important it is to make sure our students are safe. So she's doing everything she can to make sure that our students are safe in our schools, our kids are safe outside of schools, and that the gun deaths in our country go down, especially with kids, because it's horrifying, and it's an epidemic our country is facing. She wants to require background checks, reporting on multiple purchases. If people buy multiple guns at a time, it's reported right away. And raising the minimum age to buy a gun as well. So that's a few things.
Thanks. And Melissa Mayer, would you like to comment on that question about gun violence?
Sure. Marianne definitely echoes a lot of these other candidates, in terms of background checks and bump stocks and gun shows. I mean, and then again, naming the deeper, problems of the influence of the NRA and short-term profits of gun manufacturers. But then, even going to beyond about fierce love. And Marianne talks about how in this country, there's far more lovers than haters, but the haters hate with conviction. And Marianne talks about how conviction is a force multiplier. So we need to love with the same amount of force and conviction the way that the haters are. So most of us are on the same page and agreeing on a lot of these issues. And, you know, as Marianne said in one of the debates, you know, there's a lot of great ideas on this stage, and then, you know, Trump stood on the stage and said, "Make America Great Again," and won the election. So, you know, the person who goes in the voting booth doesn't necessarily vote with the rational parts of their brain. They vote with the heart. So trying to reach, you know, people that aren't showing up to vote and reaching with these deeper issues and just going beyond the policies. Of course, the policies are important, and of course, all these policies must be passed. But again, kind of going deeper of, you know, how we're all feeling when we are checking day in and day out to see that despite these policies, despite a lot of these task forces, we're still having these problems. And why are we such a violent society? This is the work that Marianne has done for the past 35 years, going deeper to ask these questions about the violence that we're all feeling and that's being expressed, and how we can really get to the root part to really transform this issue, this very, very real issue.
Thank you. And Lauren Idell?
I think all Democrats are pretty much, or most Democrats are pretty much on board, especially the candidates. I think what Bernie really believes in is that in order to really try to end the horrible epidemic of gun violence, we have to take on the NRA, and we have to overturn Citizens United. Because there's so much of that influence that is affecting every single aspect of today's life, politics, of every human being with Citizens United, that's the first step in the process. He does want to take on the NRA and its corruption and the effect on Washington. He's come out with saying the NRA has become a partisan lobbying public relations entity for gun manufacturers, and its influence must be stopped. He's, like everybody else, like all the other candidates, he's in favor of expanded background checks, and he wants to end the gun show loophole. All gun purchases should be subject to the same background check standards. He wants to ban the sale and distribution of assault weapons. Assault weapons are designed and sold as tools of war. There's absolutely no reason why these firearms should be sold to civilians. He wants to prohibit high-capacity ammunition magazines and crack down on straw purchases. Of course, Bernie is from Vermont. He is definitely not against the Second Amendment. A lot of his constituents own guns for hunting, but you don't hunt with an automatic rifle.